Launch in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Throttle up, and we have liftoff. Hello everybody, and yes, Kerbal Space Program, once again. This time with a brand new and improved vehicle. Probably shouldn't be launching during the night because this thing needs power to work, but whatever. But I figured out a landing vehicle that I made, and as you can see by the staging, there's no parachutes on it. I've tested it about 20 times, and about 19 out of those 20 times it worked, but that 1 out of 20 times I crashed because of time elapse. I was seeing how it did with time elapse and it didn't work. So this has to be used slowly. Oh yeah, this works very well. And I don't know which region this is. The polar region. I'm heading this way though, because this one's easier to get to. Can you go still? I'd like for it to go still. Be still. There we go. Yeah, we're not even close yet. These are 2 that I've already landed. I landed other ones, but I just reverted the flight. Because either they broke in the process, like some of the engines broke on landing. Right there, and then we'll put over here. Make sure it's pointing backward. It's pointing backward. Make it still. For some reason it isn't pointing backward. Change that. Still. I will be landing near that. One of the first types of it. So how high are we going to be going? Can I increase that? This thing has gone 3 million at the hardest one I've ever did, and it barely landed, but it landed. Oh, you better bet it landed. Should I try and land in those mountains? Sure, why not? That's the first that this is ever landing in the mountains. Okay. After I've landed, I'll show you how this thing works, but as of now, I'm just going to show you the launching and landing. Okay, I think we can detach this. Also, this can't move without, this can't move unless the engines are firing, so I had to attach these. This thing is very small. And since it'll be entering the atmosphere at about 3,000 miles an hour, or something like that, it has to have a heat shield or it's just going to blow up. Throw her down. Oh! It wouldn't stop. Okay. And come on. Gotta make this perfect. Gotta make the entrance perfect. Because if I don't, this could completely flip on me. And this could be entering the atmosphere. It would be protecting the heat shield. And I don't want that. But that's never happened so far. Whoop. Atmospheric entry on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. Now. We have atmospheric entry. 2,000 miles an hour. That's pretty slow. I've landed this at 3,000 before. That's the average speed that I land this thing on. This is definitely a Mars-worthy lander. It has no parachutes. No parachutes are needed, and it can land on Earth. And Earth has much stronger gravity. But it needs a heat shield or it's going to explode. Heat shield ready to detach. Detached. Now, run away. There. Lander leg signal detected. Wait. Waiting. Waiting. Now you're thinking, you're really close to the ground, Logan. Not exactly. This thing could start lifting again, like. See? This thing is very light, and it's got 4 engines that can practically that can lift this thing. Now that right there is being close to the ground. We landed kinda in the mountains. This is unmanned, by the way. No, no, no. Land, not hover. Landed. Okay, as you saw, no parachutes were used. This is a no parachute vehicle whatsoever. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, I'll get back to the land, to where I made it. Oh, I don't know if it shows that. That's just the headset that I use. I'll get back to where I made it and show you how this thing works. Let's go. Be right back. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. And now I'm going to show you how this gets into space, how it gets into a half orbit, I guess you could say. But this is just a test. What I can do with something. This wasn't really meant to have no parachutes, but I found it easier because when you add a parachute, they're much harder. And plus, trying to equal out the mass ratio or get it heavier on the top than it is the bottom is much harder. And I actually base this off of some of the stuff that the landers that they would actually use. I base this off the lander that I saw recently on a video on how it landed on Mars, the Phoenix Mars lander, and I based it on how it would the thing would drop down and be in a free fall, and then that would boost it up. The lander would then drop, and this is practically that second to last stage, except it's the last stage. But it looked pretty neat. Now, this thing, wait, do I still have, oh yeah, I did. Well, it wouldn't have broke anyway, I've tested it before. But I did need an infinite electricity because it wasn't on the day side, it landed on the night side, didn't it? Well, either way, it would have ran out of power. Because we launched during the night. Either way, I needed that. But it wouldn't have broken anyway. It was going at like 2 feet a second. Yeah, otherwise, it really looks really good. Okay, so for the fuel tanks, for the pod, I want to start off with the pod first. You're going to need one of these. It's right up there. And I don't know what level you get them at, but it's the Pro Body. Okay, you can just find it. Okay. Well, the fuel tanks that you're going to need is Oscar B fuel tank. You're going to need 2 of these. Right below the electricity, which you're only going to need 1. You could add more if you, like, sending this out on a journey to Mars or something like that. Like, this, if you for some reason trust me and how good it worked to send this, you probably should add, like, 1 or 2 more. But frankly, I just used 1. It holds 200 charge for one of them. It's the second one after this because it has double the charge, but Not better than any of these. So we used this RCS fuel tank right above the detacher, which is that. And then we got heat shield, which is the biggest one there is, aka this. We have the RCS things. This is pretty normal. We have the thing that gives this thing power, which you could, if you were going out on a long journey with this to Mars, which I probably would if I were to bring this to Mars. You could add thermal generators, these, somewhere on it, like put it here and then bring it inside, like push it inside the struts. But whenever it's supposed to be like an orbit or something, I'd prefer to use 5 of these. 4 on the outside. Now I put these in certain places because I had to use both the rotation and offset thing to do that. And I got 5. 4 on the outside, 1 entered, just to give it the maximum power containment possible. Power containment. Then you got the engines. You got 4 of these. 4 of these. Struts that are slightly angled. I'll give you a good look if you want to make this real quick. Good look. You're going to need 4, not 8, 4. And then you're going to want to do that twice. Do this right here twice. And add only 4 of these. And add them only on the engine one. You can't add them on the lander one. And then the other one's going to be for these. Try and get them as perfectly symmetrical as you can. These landing legs are the first landing legs that you get in the game, which is the LT-05 micro landing strut. It works pretty good. Better than you would think. These haven't broken once on me yet, except for one time when I broke them on purpose. But that was on purpose. I was actually trying the other times and it worked. Okay, well that is the lander. And you got the heat shield, you got the ginormous separator, the biggest separator in the game, this one, with an ejection force of only 100, surprisingly. This has more ejection force. This has more ejection force. This has a crap ton more ejection force. That's 600 ejection force. Jeez. Okay, well, it has 4 of these. I'll get to that in a second. And it has the main tank, which is is obviously the biggest fuel tanks in the game. One of these, and then one of these. Yeah, one of these. I kind of forget how I made this thing. One of these. Then you're gonna get to these, which have less fuel, but are not meant to get you into an orbit. This thing could get into an orbit. 100% sure about that. This thing could get you into a great orbit, but I'm not using it for that. So the boosters have one of these, okay, the mid-size. It has one of the small ones, and then same engines as the main tank. And then you just wanna, if you do this without any struts, the power just forces it up and it breaks everything into crap. So you're gonna need struts, strut your stuff. Then go to engines, put the separations in the same stage that these decouple. Also, the things that I'm using to eject them are the ones with the most ejection force. With 450 ejection force, the hydronic detachment manifold. I shouldn't even try to pronounce that. And then you're going to want to add 4 on the side, and then go around to the other side and add another 4. I couldn't get it symmetrical. I know, I suck at that. And then just keep strutting it. Do one like that to make sure it sticks. Pull down, pull up, pull every which way, pull together to make sure it stays together, because without it, it's just going to explode. These will rip off of the detachment things. Unless, of course, you had cheats. Let's see, what else is there about this thing? I think that's about it. Really. And you could obviously switch the pod to, like, something else like this, or perhaps this if you really redesigned it. But, yeah, you could actually make this lander pretty early on in the game. And you'd obviously have to replace these, because you get those later on in the game. But that would give you more fuel, wouldn't it? And then you could replace those with, like, something else. I don't know how early on you get these in the game, but that might work. Or these. But you'll figure it out if you're early on in the game. This is just my testing one. And you could, I'm pretty sure you get the small pod later on, very later on in the game, so you could replace it with, I don't know, this one. That would fit, wouldn't it? Nah, you could replace it with a lot of other things, so. If you really worked on it, you could replace it with this, or one of these, which are same size but taller. Perhaps if you really worked on it, one of these, or no, not those, too big. You could replace, the fuel tanks I think you get early on, the engines I think you get early on, these, you get the first electric charging thing that you get in the game, the landing struts you start out with in the game, the structural things you start out in the game, the electric thing, not so quite, you have to go about 2 levels down the road, but not too far down the road to get to it, but yeah, that's essentially it. So as always, this is Logan, signing off from kerbalspacepogram. Houston, we have no solution. Good luck exploding.